What's up, beautiful people? It's your girl, Angie Gonzalez, and today I'm bringing you a bonus episode of the Pretty Purposeful podcast. If you're following me on social media, you may have noticed lately that I've been speaking out a lot on different situations that I've encountered as a mixed race person. And so today, I just really wanted to touch on that topic specifically because I saw something online today that was really disturbing. And, while I'm concerned about my own issues, I'm concerned about us as a whole, as a collective, the human race. I believe some conversations are best had in a more personal way. And today, I wanted to take some time to talk about understanding and empathy in a world that it desperately needs both. So, for the first time in my life, I'm sharing my personal experiences as a mixed race individual. And it hasn't been an easy journey leading up to this point. It's been filled with a lot of complexities, misunderstandings, a lot of pain and trauma. I've even experienced some feelings of guilt that I now realize were never mine to bear to begin with. I've often felt caught between two worlds and not always accepted in either. Yet I've remained loyal to my Black community. My Hispanic side, I don't really know much about, but I've always had a love to learn about the culture and just honestly to honor my grandfather. So of course, I've just always had a open mind and learning more about my Hispanic heritage, so that I could, have a connection to it. And just, I felt that that was a part of my own self discovery, just learning who I was as a person, really to fully own my identity. I felt it was important for me to learn as much as I could about the Hispanic culture, and it's an ongoing process. I'm so passionate about this topic that I've taken some notes here. There's some things that I do want to touch on, but for the most part, I'm going to be speaking from my heart today. So I'm just going to apologize now in advance if anything that I say comes off, the wrong way, or if you take it personally. That is not my intention. I am just speaking genuinely from my heart because I really do care about the future of our country and of our community. Black and brown people we're still, dealing with systemic oppression and racism. We're dealing with, in the healthcare system, unconscious and conscious bias that affects the quality of care that we receive. We have the highest rate of infant mortality. We have the highest rates of, cardiovascular disease and late diagnosed cancer, than any other demographic. So these are things that are ongoing, issues that we're dealing with, but we have to get past some of our own personal biases that we have. We have to acknowledge that we ourselves have conscious and unconscious bias, and we really have to take the step to address them. Now, me sharing my experience as a mixed race person does not mean that I haven't had some biases throughout my life because of my experiences. I got to a point where I felt like I had endured so much unjust and unfair treatment just simply for existing that I never wanted to be that way towards other people. And so really early in my life, even when I was a teenager and I was misbehaving, making bad choices, I still had an empathetic heart. Even to this day, I always carry, a care for humanity because I just never would want another innocent person to have to go through what I've gone through just simply for existing. While the trauma I've experienced has, it's hurt me, I've had to deal with it. The beauty of that is that I've been able to be empathetic to others, and I've been able to lessen the impact to other people and not take that frustration and the hurt and pain that I feel and essentially not regurgitating that back out into society. In many cases, I've suppressed it. And this is the first time in my life that I'm actually openly speaking about it. I haven't even had any one-on-one conversations with my immediate family about my feelings about being mixed. It's just not a topic that we talk about. This is who I am. This is my identity at the center of this issue we're talking about. So to not have that type of conversation with my own immediate family, that says a lot. So So the video I saw today was actually on Instagram. It was a Panamanian Afro Latina who is darker skinned. And she was just talking about the situation with Erica Mena from Love and Hip Hop, calling Spice a monkey. And, I'm sure Erica regrets using that term, just because historically how that has been used against Black people. But her perspective was she basically categorized all Afro Latina, ambiguous looking women, light skinned women, which would include non Latina African American women who are just light skinned. She grouped all of us into a category and basically said, this is how we are, this is how we get. And I mean, in all my life, I've never used a racial slur to a Black person because I've grown up with my Black family. I've grown up in Black culture. So it's stupid. Outside of using the N word, casually amongst friends, I've never even thought about hurling a racial slur because that to me that's some hate that comes from an evil, perspective. And why would I want to attack my own people with a racial slur when I, for my whole life, have considered myself to be Black? Even though I hadn't been accepted, I just would never resort to that type of insult. It doesn't, it's not innate for me. Whether it is for Erica, I'm not sure. I don't know how she was raised. I don't know, I know that she identifies as Afro Latina, but I don't know what her upbringing consisted of. I think she speaks Spanish fluently. So, she may not have the kind of connection that I have with the Black community. She may not have that. Right. So, again, I'm not saying that when she said that it was meant to be racial, but she definitely crossed the line, and that shouldn't have been something that came out of her mouth. That being said, the lady, when she grouped all of us in one category, it just got me to thinking, like, damn, more and more recently, I keep hearing the perspective of darker skinned Black women, and it continues to be this thing about our skin color. It continues to be, we are categorized. Now, I will say this. I can say that I've had issue with darker skinned women in my life. Like the first fight I ever got in was with a dark skinned girl, but I have not made other Black women, darker skinned women suffer because of that. I've not viewed other dark skinned women and said, okay, they're the enemy, they're going to want to fight me. No, absolutely not. In fact, one of my first best friends is actually dark skinned, and I mean darker skin. And she actually used to take up for me. She's like family. So it's just interesting how to hear these perspectives, it's so hypocritical. She basically was saying that Black men do not fetishize over light skinned women, but light skinned women fetishize over Black men. But time out. Do Black women not fetishize about light skinned men? And do women who are like caramel complexion, like right in between dark and light, right? They're right in the middle. Do they not have preferences? Maybe they prefer a dark skinned man. Listen, we can call them fetishes, but when there's a difference between having a preference and then having a fetish, because I could have a preference, but that doesn't mean that that's the only kind of person I'm going to date. Anybody that knows me and knows my exes will see that I have dated every color on the spectrum. I've never been in a relationship outside of my race, but within my race, light skin all the way to the darkest. Okay. But do I have a preference? Yes. Every darker skinned man is not going to be attractive to you. The same as light skinned women. Men might have a preference for light skinned women, but they're not going to just date light skinned women only because every light skinned woman they encounter may not have that same appeal to them. That being said, men who fetishize over light skinned women and white women, they are determined to be with a light skinned or white woman no matter what, meaning they're not willing to date darker skinned women. That is fetishizing. And the other way around as well. Whenever a light skinned woman won't date a man that's any other complexion but dark, or if a white woman doesn't date within her own race at all, and she just only dates Black men, that to me is, and that's my own personal opinion, that to me is fetishizing over a race. So to go back what she was saying, I just found it, very disturbing because this lady has a platform. She has like 30 something thousand followers, and she's sharing her insights about how she feels. And she specifically said Afro Latina, like she's not an Afro Latina, she is, but she's talking about lighter skin Afro Latinas, biracial women, light skinned women, anybody that looks ambiguous. So you could be Blasian and she's talking about you. You could be Indian and Black, she's talking about you. How you just gonna group all of us into one category, sis, because of the color of our skin? Being stylish is all about embracing your unique self, and Lala's Closet is here to help you do just that. Visit lalasclosetatl.com and check out the fantastic finds they have waiting for you. So, this is what brought me to wanting to do a bonus episode today, because I have been talking about my experiences as a mixed race person because it has affected the quality of my life. And when someone works hard like I do, like I take pride in working hard. I'm not lazy. I'm very creative and productive. And when I'm in workspaces, I am very innovative and self-motivated. I'm not someone that just sits around and waits for someone to do something for me. With that being said, to have my quality of life affected because of someone's bias or um, racist or just bigotry, at some point I have to stand up for myself. And through that, I'm hoping that my standing up for myself will be able to be, uh, will be able to shed light on some of the situations and also validate some other people who are also mixed race, who are experiencing the same thing. So to hear this sister on Instagram specifically targeting light skinned, ambiguous, mixed Afro Latina women, it was sickening. It was horrible because it's like, excuse me, do you not have people in your family that fit that description? Do you not think that you may have people in your future lineage that will fit that description? So, are you telling me that all these innocent babies that are in a nursery right now that are less than 24 hours are having that mindset? It is a projection that is being put on a group of people, the same way white supremacists and racist white people and racist people in general judge people because of the skin color, the way that they look. It is the same thing. We are all individuals. We have things in common. We have physical features in common. You've got some darker skinned women that have different texture hair, something that they got passed down through their genetics, right? But is it fair to say, oh, because this sister over here got long hair? For instance, example is Kenya Moore. She's a brown skinned sister and she has really beautiful hair. Is it fair to treat her a certain type of way and say, oh, she thinks she better? No, that's a projection of your own insecurity. Because first of all, why are you not just accepting that that's who she is? That is a part of her identity. That's what makes her her. She can't help how her hair grows out of her follicles. Just the same as our sisters that have the 4C hair that's thick and, may have to do extra work to get their hair to be managed or maintained. They didn't ask for that. But over time, they embrace it. That's what we all are supposed to do. None of us asked for our physical attributes. None of us asked for the races that we were born into this world, the identities that we came into this world. There were already labels and already definitions tied to, the races that we are or the skin complexions that we are. But ultimately, nobody wants to be stereotyped. And that's what's happening. My Black people, and it's not just Black people. Let me just say, we just have to really confront the issue, what it is, because we're not making any progress. We are becoming further divided. I'm frustrated because I've always been loyal to my Black people, always, regardless of what a person has thought of me when they met me. They don't know what's in my heart. They don't know that the struggles that our ancestors went through, the slavery, the civil rights movement, the assassinations of innocent people who were just trying to fight for our rights, human rights, that doesn't affect me, that didn't actually mold me and actually shape me into the woman that I am, that those experiences do not motivate me to do something with my life. No, I absolutely am connected to my ancestors. And for someone to try to deny me of that because of my skin color, It is insane. I mean, it's absurd. It's the same thing that we say as Black and brown people that we don't want white people doing to us. We're doing it to ourselves. So this is a call to action. Like, I literally, I did not really have much time to plan this episode. So if I sound like I'm ranting, if I sound emotionally charged, I'm going to be honest with you. I am. I am frustrated. I am fed up. Let me take a moment here. So, if we expect others to understand our experiences and empathize with us, then we have to be willing to do the same. We have to be able to understand and embrace each other's complexities, whatever they may be, okay? And then in doing so, use that as a way for us to come together, because the situations may not be identical, but the pain, the trauma, it's a barrier, for us. So that's why I wanted to call this episode Bridges, Barriers, or Bystanders. Which one are you? A bridge is simply someone who is willing to stand in the gap and to help unite versus trying to divide. Now, being a barrier, it's self explanatory. A barrier is trying to hold someone back, it is oppression. It is a form of oppression. We don't want to be oppressed by white supremacists and systemic racism. We don't want barriers. We fight through barriers our whole lives, right? So, what do we look like actually being barriers to another marginalized group of people? It makes no sense to any people, not just marginalized people, any human being. I mean, that's so hypocritical to want to prevent someone else from having equally thriving life and quality of life, the same that you're fighting for, the justice and equality that you're fighting for. You are keeping others from getting there. You are mentally oppressing light-skinned people, mixed people. That's the same thing, that the same tactics that were used back in the Jim Crow era. Once the slaves were free, the systems that were put in place, the laws, you don't think that that affected the Black community's mental health, the way that they viewed themselves? You don't think that trauma has been passed down through generations? I mean, hello. So if we know that, how can you be an active participant in creating that type of trauma, inflicting that trauma on someone else who is no better off than you? We all have the same struggle. And so it is a fight that we all have to come together and work towards. And we need our white allies. Every white person is not racist. My best friend is white. There are white people that I've gone to school with, that I've grew up with, who actually lived in the hood. So they understand the struggle. Yes, they probably got picked on, but yes, they probably still have love for Black people and Black culture because it's a part of who they are. You think when they get in corporate America, you think they're not having to clash, bump heads with those people? It would be unfair for us to sit there and tell our white brothers and our white sisters who understand the struggle that they don't understand the struggle and their experience is not valid. But at the same time, we expect them to be our ally. We expect them to be the voice for us. That is just as hypocritical as it is as treating mixed people different because of our skin color. Ultimately, we have to do better. We have to start to, empathize with, number one, we all have our struggle, right? This isn't to take anything away from the Black community. Clearly, of this country, we know that Black people have been on the bottom historically. They have oppressed and pushed us to the bottom. And we have immigrants coming over here and viewing us, as less than them or less privileged as they are. And it's true. We see it happen all the time. They come over, they get education, they get business loans, they have all these different programs for them. At the same time, Black citizens of this country who were born here, whose ancestors shed blood and built this country, don't have that support. I do just want to say that during this episode, I'm just asking you to take a moment to reflect on your situation, your unconscious biases that you may have towards other people, and just recognize that we have to have compassion. If we expect to receive compassion and empathy when it comes to what we've gone through, we have to be able to extend it to others. So I really do hope that this episode sparks some important conversations. They're difficult, but they're very important, and it encourages us to have more empathy for one another. So, why empathy? As we go about our daily lives, it's easy for us to get caught up in our own worlds. We often forget the power of putting ourselves in someone else's shoes and truly understanding what they may be going through. So empathy is like a bridge. It's connecting people, who might have vastly different experiences and perspectives than we do, but having empathy is basically it is like reaching out and trying to meet someone where they are. So I planned on doing an episode specifically about, my struggles as a mixed race individual and actually doing a series on it. And I will do that in the future. But like I said, today that post on Instagram just really grind my gears, and I just had to speak out on it. Um it's important that we recognize that, not everybody has the capacity or the ability to express empathy. Some don't know what it is, and that's an issue. That is definitely a challenge that we have. A lot of times people will project their insecurities onto us and blame us for things that are just out of our control, like being light skinned. I can't help that. Why does my physical appearance bother you? And why are you trying to write the narrative for a whole entire group of people based on one experience or a few experiences? Since when do we not acknowledge that every person is an individual? Isn't that what we should be teaching? I mean, we should be teaching our children to embrace their own individuality. That is your power. Being an individual in this world with millions of people, the fact that we each have a unique fingerprint and it separates, it divides, it makes us our own person. And so I understand there's a lot of groupthink out here on the internet, but ultimately, can we reel it back in and respect people as individuals? Because anything other than that is just hypocrisy. I mean, come on, people. If I wasn't mixed, I would be related to someone who is mixed. I would have someone in my family that I love that is mixed. If I had an issue with them, I would have to question why. I would have to question, does my inability to connect with them have anything to do with the way that they look or the fact that they're mixed? Think about the people in your family who are mixed race, whether that's biracial, black and white, Hispanic, Afro Latina, or if you have anybody that has Asian or anything, just anything that is different from a monoracial person in your racial group. And then ask yourself, has their identity, their individual racial identity affected the way that you interact with them? You really have to think about why that is and start there. This episode was a bonus. Like I said, I just had some notes to kind of guide this conversation. It is a difficult conversation to have. It's a difficult topic to discuss, and I definitely will be doing a series on it. Open up your mind and open up your heart and hear the actual experiences that we go through, because that is what it's going to take for us to have empathy for one another. In order for us to become allies and to support one another, at some point, we have to be willing to let the guard down. That's what it is. It's a wall that we put up to protect ourselves. But when we really think about it, how can we join forces? How can we fight against racism and systemic racism and injustices? How can we, as a whole, come together and fight against these injustices if we don't even try to trust one another, if we're not even finding a space? We're not finding a space to trust one another, and we're not even working towards creating one. With my podcast, by speaking out, by sharing my experiences, in no way am I trying to make anyone feel guilty or feel bad. I simply want people to understand what my life has been like, what I walk around and shoulder every single day of my life, and continue to try to thrive and continue to fight against, systemic oppression and different injustices that I experience from the white, racists that are, still in this country, and not just white, there's people of other marginalized groups who discriminate against Black and brown people, or Black people specifically. We haven't even talked about the subject of our faith. Where is our faith? That's a whole nother podcast. But the fact that we are all made in God's image, if you don't know where to start there. Ask God for discernment when you're having these tough conversations. It's not easy, but being able to start there, have that starting point, have God be at the center of that conversation, having faith that we can overcome, because we have overcome a lot. Right now, it's I mean, think about it. Taking steps backwards. If you haven't noticed, we are really taking, and they may be micro steps, but we're taking micro steps backwards. That's why I named this podcast Bridges, Barriers, or Bystanders. Which one are you? We really have to confront that every single day. I cannot ignore the fact that my race is a problem for many people, and it has affected my life. And for so long, I've shouldered that, and I've felt like I, as an individual, was my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my problem that people are bothered by my race, my mixed race. It's not my problem. Now, what I can do is I can open up and give people and shed light on what it's like to actually walk in my shoes. And then they have a choice then whether they want to empathize with that or if they can relate to that. 9 times out of 10, they can relate. And we all have our struggle. We all have our individual struggles. Have you ever heard of somebody helping somebody while they're going through something? Do we not do that already? Think about it. Have you not helped somebody else who was in a worse off situation than you while you were going through it? And most likely you did it because you knew that was you could do it. You knew you had enough bandwidth. There's classism in there. Okay? They treat and I hate to say it, Trump, and let me know, I'm not even going to go there about what Trump did with the Trump supporters, where the majority of them were uneducated and, living in impoverished conditions. We're not going to go there. There are some who have grown up with us, who have been there by our sides, who have witnessed the injustices, who have empathized with the injustices, who have stood in the gap for the injustices, and continue to speak up on our behalf in rooms that we're not even in. And they do it for the right reason. And they want to continue to advance this country to where we are making progress, meaning we're not going back to days of separation and segregation. So let's be mindful of that too in all of this. So before we wrap up this bonus episode, I want to encourage each of you to take a moment and reflect on your own capacity for empathy. How can you extend a hand of understanding to others, especially those who have experienced unique challenges? What steps can you take to bridge divides and promote unity within your family or your community or your workplace? How can we collectively break down barriers and build bridges to a more inclusive future? When people are like, oh no, I don't want to have nothing to do with that, how can we let them understand how them sitting by and not doing anything is affecting the collective? I'm out here, I'm putting my voice out here, I'm putting myself out here, I'm putting my reputation out here. I am putting it all on the line essentially because this is my life. This is my identity, this is my life, my future, and I know that I have the ability to affect change just by speaking out. And I may not be the best podcaster. I'm not the most eloquent speaker. I'm working on it. I have a lot of value to offer, and I just want to use this platform for good. That's going to be all, you guys. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for taking time to listen today. We will be back on Tuesday with another episode at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Please like, follow, and share. Also, if you would like to leave a message about this bonus episode, go to angiegonzalez.com/pretty purposeful podcast, and you can leave a voice message on that page. Again, thank you so much for joining. I hope you all have a blessed rest of your day, and I'll be back in touch again soon. Stay purposeful, y'all. Bye.